Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. As things get worse and worse, we're going to keep upping the level of body armor that we're wearing. So we got the level 3 plus body armor from Premier Body Armor. Go use coupon code PREPPER for 10% off through the link in the description. You can't go wrong with that. Stay tuned. We got a great in-depth video coming up for you about that. And if you guys haven't seen the video with Make Ready Missy that we did earlier today, go and watch it. But please, guys, behave yourself. We're all men of culture here, so let's just kind of keep it civilized as much as possible, okay? Let's talk about all the good news today. The great news, $40 billion committed to World War III. Absolutely fantastic. There was a big debate about whether or not they should get mothers the formula that they need, but $40 billion for World War III, hey, passed with flying colors, passed the Senate with flying colors. Now, what a lot of people aren't talking about is this Iran situation. I'm going to tell you why. There's a few factors contributing to a high likelihood of this situation escalating. For one, both countries, both Israel and Iran, have their own domestic issues. If you haven't been paying attention, there's been a lot of unrest within the occupied territories today, within Palestine, the West Bank. With Israel, there's a lot of political stuff going on with their minority government there. And usually when there's that sort of thing going on in your own country, not only because it's a unique situation with Palestine and Hezbollah and Hamas and all those other guys that are involved in that fight, but usually a great way to take attention away from those domestic issues is to initiate a war. Now, Israel claims that, and this is nothing new, that Iran is just a few weeks away from having enough fission material to create a bomb. According to Israel's defense minister, well, we've been hearing that since, 2004? And of course, we've been through Stuxnet. We've been through numerous assassinations on nuclear scientists. We've been through a variety of things. Let me just turn down my brightness here because, what are we going to do here? Come on. Okay, never mind. Forget it. We're just going to have to... We're doing it live. All right. So we've been through a bunch of situations, but this one I think is a bit different. As you may know, there was a falling out of the Iranian nuclear deal. It was supposed to be cemented. There was some promise that it was going to be completed. And after the Russian war, Ukraine thing started, well, that was basically scrapped. Now, Israel and the United States are conducting one of the largest military exercises that is simulating an attack on Iranian nuclear facilities called Chariots of Fire, okay? And why it's so important right now? Well, Iran is struggling with its own domestic issues. 5 people were killed in a food riot protesting food prices. Kind of talked a little bit about that yesterday. So you have domestic issues in both countries. Now, why is this so important? If you think the price of gas is high now, if you think the price of oil is high now, if a war breaks out in Iran, which is either the 3rd or 4th biggest producer of oil in the world, if you think things are bad right now, just wait. We're not going to see $20 a barrel. We're going to see the absence of gasoline at the pumps. That's what we're going to see. And the reason why is because Iran has the ability to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Through this strait, about 20% of the world's oil flows. If this strait were to be shut down, the impact on top of what we're seeing with Russia and Ukraine on the global oil supply, the global energy supply, and the price of gas and fuel is going to be apocalyptic. So we're not hearing a lot about this in the media. Not a lot of attention is being paid to the Middle East right now. Obviously, attention is on Ukraine. Attention is even a little bit on what's going on in China and Taiwan. Now, if all these situations flare up at the same time, that's it. It's game over. It's absolutely game over. The markets crash. The price of oil goes through the roof. There's nothing in the stores anymore. And everything goes back to domestic wartime production. We're going to see another, what was her name? Susie the Riveter or something? Rosie the Riveter? We can do it. It's going to be that, only it's going to be some blue-haired, socially conscious what would you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Progressive type avatar to represent that propaganda campaign. You know, you got to hand it to the Russians. Whoops, I knocked my Kelly kettle here. You got to hand it to the Russians. You know, as much as we don't approve of their invasion of Ukraine, that whole Z campaign was very clever. Very clever because it's very easy to write that on something, and it's kind of, I've almost thought sometimes, Z, does that represent Generation Z? Like the last generation? I don't know. Anyways, or the last war, perhaps. I know that Z, I don't think Z is a letter in the Russian alphabet. Anyways, we're getting off track. We're talking about World War III escalating. We got Biden committing, well, he's going to be signing off on this $40 billion. You know they're going to do it. And potentially sending some heavy armaments, which Ukraine may be able to use to target Russian cities or Russian towns. You know what? My OCD is bad. It's as bad as yours. Yes, you. So there you go. I fixed that for you. Anyways, it's not looking good. Okay. Now the House, one thing that was done well today for the people was that the House approved a bill to take aim at gasoline price gouging. And this bill directs the Federal Trade Commission to punish companies that engage in price gouging. Okay. Now, Kim Schreier, who is a representative of Washington, said that it was infuriating that spikes in gas prices were happening at the same time that gas and oil companies are making record profits and taking advantage of international crises to make a profit. Now, part of the reason why the price of gas is so high, in spite of the price of oil going down a little bit, which is probably going to go up soon anyways because of all the stuff that I just mentioned, is because of it's a refining issue, I believe. I don't know the specifics of it, but you know, it takes time to refine oil into gasoline and diesel, and that is where the hiccup in the supply chain is apparently happening. We have London, who's also committing to provide long-range artillery and anti-ship missiles as well as drones to Kiev, increasing the likelihood that Ukraine is going to use these weapons on Russia itself, thereby escalating the conflict. Now, in terms of the conflict, the Russians have made a very significant advance. In addition to the Azovstal stuff which was going on, they made a very critical advance within the Donbass, okay? The Russian and allied forces made the largest advance so far, smashing the Ukrainian lines in Donbass, reaching as far as Soledar on the Lysychansk and Bakhmut highway. There's all these maps that are incredibly detailed. I cannot, for the life of me, go into great depth with you about that. That would just be too long of a video. There's plenty of channels here on YouTube who break it down, who go block by block, county by county, town by town within Ukraine, explaining exactly who is where, who's winning, and all that stuff. All you need to know that apparently 16,000 Ukrainians have been stranded in a county that I cannot, I can't... having a Joe Biden moment here. In a county that I cannot pronounce, okay? While an estimated 10,000 Ukrainians have been trapped in another county that I cannot pronounce. There are suspicions that this was the main reason why the two generals or Ministry of Defense forces, whatever you want to call them, between the United States and Russia had that communication tonight for the fate of the thousands of Ukrainian sources. So if you're not aware, the head of the Russian military and the head of the American military were talking on the phone tonight about stuff. Nobody knows exactly about what. So authoritative military sources speak of a complete collapse of the Ukrainian defense lines, especially in southern Donbass, as shown by the maps in the end of this text. And we'll post some links to those maps for you in the comment section or in the description section below. As this is happening, the U.S. has revealed that there are a record number of troops in Poland, 12,000 to be exact. The U.S. ambassador to Poland revealed on Thursday that there are 12,600 of America's military personnel in the EU member state at the moment, the largest in history as NATO conducts massive exercises on Ukraine's doorstep. Poland and the Baltic states have asked for even more troops, according to documents leaked to the press earlier. Well, they're going to have $40 billion to play with Who knows how much of that money is actually going to get to where it's supposed to go? Is it going to be laundered? Is it going to be squandered? Chances are both of those things is going to ring true. Now, in terms of the markets, I was watching my main man, Jeremy, over at Financial Education, and he's been freaking out for the last Financial Education YouTube channel, okay? He's one of these millennial investors that I've been following for years. And good guy, very knowledgeable guy, okay? And he's been freaking out for the last few weeks about the markets crashing, that he's never seen Wall Street so scared. He's talking about how Melvin Capital, the guys who got fleeced in the meme stock war, you know, the whole Wall Street bets thing, they're the ones that got crushed at hedge fund. Nobody cares that they're now going out of business, of course, because it's a hedge fund. Who cares about a hedge fund, right? They're practically giving people back their money because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to put it. The NASDAQ is down 30%. The Dow Jones is down 15%. And the S&P is down 20% just this year. Now, this is very significant because it is expected that the markets are going to plunge a lot more. The NASDAQ composite could plunge 75% from its peak. S&P 500, 45% from its peak, warns Guggenheim's Scott Miner, who's a Wall Street analyst, okay? This looks like a lot like the collapse of the internet bubble, he says. He fears that the Federal Reserve has made it abundantly clear that it's aiming to continue raising interest rates despite the possibility it could result in a reduction in equity markets and elsewhere. So it's not looking good for anybody who's got money in the stock market, and anybody who's got money in crypto. It's not looking good for you either. But gold, what's going on with gold? Well, gold is pretty much the same as it was 4 or 5 months ago. It's at around $1,840. So, you know, I mean, it hasn't gone up, but it hasn't gone down either. It's the one thing that has held its value. And this is why we're saying, like, you know, in a Mad Max apocalyptic situation, at the end of the day, you know, we haven't changed enough as a species to be all in on this crypto thing yet. Get a little bit of crypto, but at the end of the day, at least for the foreseeable future, for the 21st century, I'm guessing, gold is still going to be incredibly relevant for a long time. Now, we got this monkeypox thing going around. I don't know much about it. It's now in the news. Apparently, health officials in Quebec are investigating more than a dozen cases of suspected monkeypox in Canada after U.S. and European health officials confirmed rising cases of the rare infectious disease, suggesting a wider outbreak may be happening globally. Great! Isn't this just fabulous? Oh, and get this symptom. It's investigating reports of about 10 people with genital lesions that may be associated with the disease. All the more reason to not go to the club and trap yourself in your bunker with all of your preps, sharpening your knives, waiting for the end of days to unfold. I just wonder what sort of intervention the geniuses over at Pfizer are going to come up with to deal with this problem. I'm sure they're not going to let that opportunity go to waste. Apparently, I was doing a little bit of research, and certain strains of monkeypox can have a fatality rate of between 1 and 15%. So that's pretty severe. I can only wonder if there is some sort of relationship between this and the other thing that was going around for the last few years. Who knows? Who really knows? Record-setting heat wave is set to bake the U.S. this weekend, sending temperatures soaring to 100 degrees in parts of the country, which is pretty extreme for May. We're talking about blackouts being possible this summer due to heat and extreme weather. Extreme temperatures and ongoing drought could cause the power grid to buckle across vast areas of the country this summer, potentially leading to electricity shortages and blackouts. A U.S. power grid regulator said Wednesday. High temperatures, the agency warns, will cause the demand for electricity to rise as people use more air conditioners, and air conditioners generate more heat. So they create the heat island effect of cities, making cities on average 5 degrees higher in temperature than their countryside counterparts. Meanwhile, drought conditions will lower the amount of power available to meet the demand, because the dams cannot generate as much electricity. On Thursday, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center called for nearly the entire contiguous United States to experience above average temperatures this summer. Well, what else is new? In Canada right now, conversely, we are experiencing some crazy flooding. Cropland deteriorating as Canada has excess rain hinders planting. Okay, now last year, if you don't recall, we had one of the wildest droughts I had ever seen in my life. Like forest fires, droughts, it was absolutely parched from here all the way to our temperate rainforest out in Vancouver Island. I had never seen anything. Like you could flick a match and Vancouver Island would go up in smoke, just like that. Okay, and this is a temperate rainforest. Typically there's a dry season, but never that dry. And I was speaking with a lot of the locals. They had never seen it that dry. From here all the way to Manitoba, okay, which is kind of our Central Plains area, all the way to the shield, the boreal shield, it was absolutely bone dry. Farmers had to truck in water to water their cattle. It was getting to the point where, people were losing their livelihoods. This year, the reverse is true. Okay, so we're going from one extreme to another. This is the future, guys. It's the age of extremes. Everything out of its place and everything in a more extreme form than the norm. And this is going to complicate our ability to grow food. Only 4% of the province's crops, okay, and this is in Manitoba, have been sown as of May 17th, lagging the 5-year average by 50%. With all the stuff going on in Ukraine, with all the hoarding going on from China to India, the writing is on the wall. The price of food is fitting to skyrocket. To the moon. That's the only thing going to the moon anymore. Remember that? To the moon, Diamond Hands. Diamond Hands better hold on to your food, ammo, medical supplies, because that's going to be the only thing that has value. Russia has indicated that they're not going to export food at the expense of their domestic market. According to Medvedev, he was the former president of Russia, now the Russian Security Council deputy chairman. He noted that it's ready to fulfill its obligations in full in terms of whatever contractual agreements it has with other countries to ship grain. However, it also expects cooperation from its partners, including on international platforms. Otherwise, he says, it's illogical on the one hand they impose insane sanctions against us, while on the other hand they demand to ship food. This is not how it's done. We are not idiots, he says. I will reiterate, no export shipments at the expense of our own market. Food for the Russian people is of utmost importance, he said. And they have a population of 150 million people, 144 million people, give or take. And of course, that's a lot of mouths to feed. So they got to look out for numero uno, which in their case is them. Okay? So in terms of global food scarcity and production, I was reading an article the other day talking about how because our food system is so efficient, in times of crisis, it's actually much, much worse. And it's kind of like this bigger you are, the harder you fall principle. Because the just-in-time delivery system has allowed us to move food in such an efficient way, and some people are going to argue this and say, no, it's not that efficient, it's very wasteful, and I agree that it is. That said, though, generally speaking, when times are good, you can get whatever you want, whenever you want. However, if there's just one little bottleneck, one little hiccup in the supply chain, the whole thing collapses, just like the baby formula thing. And a lot of this has to do with the monopolization of these various industries, be they agricultural, food production, whatever the case might be. It's a handful of companies who govern the food industry. And as a result, you get these bottlenecks forming. Then you add on to it war, climate chaos, what else? Just wild market fluctuations, the whole 9 yards, and that's what you get. I feel like I'm missing something today. I think I've taken you all around the world from the next war with Iran to the war in China and Taiwan to the ongoing war with Ukraine, which is only going to escalate. God only knows how far it's going to go now that they have a $40 billion blank check to pay with. We can only imagine where we're going to be in a few months. So go and check out that video with Make Ready Missy. She shows you how to preserve food. And guys, remember, we are men of culture. We are men of culture, so we are well behaved, all right? And yeah, Premier Body Armor, I know that the camera is inverted. People are complaining about it. Get over it. I don't show anything in these videos anyways, all right? Premier Body Armor, and this is not built on there, just so you know, okay? So you can put your own patch, just like this one here with the CCFR, Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. You got to support them, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned tomorrow because we got a big video for you. Take care. Canadian Prepper out.